Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Society of New Haven. I am Rich Stockton, a member of the Worship Committee. You can refer to me with the pronouns he and him. If you're joining us for the first time, we're so glad you chose to spend this time with us. We are a diverse, multi-generational faith community that inspires lives of compassion and generosity, nurtures spiritual growth, cultivates transformative connections, and creates a more just world. We believe that all people are inherently worthy. Together, we affirm that this day and our being together can make each of us braver, more compassionate, and wiser than when we woke up this morning. We continue to have hybrid services where we meet in person and also by live streaming. We still want to avoid close contact, and masks are mandatory inside our building for everyone's safety. And while you are in the sanctuary, as a courtesy, please silence your phones and other electronic devices. We have relaxed the bathroom rules so that more than one person at a time can use the main bathrooms, provided everyone remains masked. Now, this will be interesting. At the end of the service, our morning group is still planning to have coffee outside and to keep us all safe by being outdoors. For newcomers, there is a welcome table. And again, I'm not sure if it's outside or certainly near the door. And you're welcome to stop there or contact us by email at membership@usnh.org or go to our website, usnh.org, to find out more about us. One reminder, our congregational meeting will be held on December 12th after the service. One final announcement this morning, Bill and Jim and I invite you to a service of words and music, a service whose flow may be a bit different from usual. In particular, the benediction following this chalice extinguishing and the musical benediction at the end of the service are longer than usual. So we ask you please remain quietly seated until the musical benediction concludes. And now let us worship together. The covenant. Oh, sorry. No, it's all right. Actually, I'm confusing myself because I have an old order of service here, and I thought, well, that's not right. Our covenant lies at the center of how Unitarian Universalists gather in community. We are united not by a particular set of beliefs, but by the promises we make about how we will be together, how we will treat each other, and how we will seek to mend relationships when we fall short of our aspirations. While the following words express our intentions in writing, our true covenant lives and breathes in our actions. So please join me now in reciting the words that are in your order of service. We covenant together to create and nurture a culture of respect and kindness, and to engage in the spiritual and everyday practice of loving more generously. To this end, we will strive to be open, to value differences, listen deeply, use kind language, speak our truths, work with conflict, and seek humor and joy. Today, we light our chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, with these words. As we are trying to consider music made and heard by human beings and not by birds or angels, it seems difficult to suppose that even subconscious images can be separated from some human experience. There must be something behind subconsciousness to produce consciousness, and so on. But whatever the elements and origin of these so-called images are, that they do stir deep emotional feelings and encourage their expression is a part of the unknowable we know. They do often arouse something that has not yet passed the borderline between subconsciousness and consciousness, an artistic intuition.
Well, good morning. A special thank you to everyone who came out this morning, and just invite you from time to time as you're listening to what you're hearing. It is very beautiful outside right now, and I think it's fitting for the themes that we're going to be discussing. So I thought I would begin this morning, and the words to this part are in the order of service. So just a quick introduction to the movement. The Transcendentalist movement flourished in the area around Concord, Massachusetts in the middle of the 19th century. Concord Library curator Leslie Perrin Wilson described the movement in these words: "The transcendental emphasis on the oneness of individual souls with nature and with God gave dignity and importance to human activity and made possible a belief in the power to effect social change in harmony with God's purposes. The humanistic focus of transcendentalism arose partly as a reaction against the increasing dehumanization and materialism engendered by the Industrial Revolution in the early 19th century. It was also a response to what Emerson and his educated contemporaries felt to be the spiritual inadequacy of established religion. This morning, we will expand the Transcendentalist canon just a bit as we hear not from its most famous proponent, Ralph Waldo Emerson, but some of his contemporaries. We invite you to hold these offered words and music and to let your imaginations, if not your spirits, carry you to some place of reflection and harmony and beauty in whatever ways you find nourishing. This morning we hear first from the composer and author Charles Ives, who describes the Orchard House, built in Concord, Massachusetts in the mid-17th century. It was the home of Bronson Alcott, and then his daughter, Louisa May Alcott, and it's where Louisa May wrote and set her novel, Little Women. Now, to Ives. There is a commonplace beauty about Orchard House, a kind of spiritual sturdiness underlying its quaint picturesqueness, a kind of common triad of the New England homestead, whose overtones tell us that there must have been something aesthetic fibered in the Puritan severity, the self-sacrificing part of the ideal, a value that seems to stir a deeper feeling, a stronger sense of being nearer some perfect truth than a Gothic cathedral or an Etruscan villa. All around you, under the Concord sky, there still floats the influence of that human faith, melody, transcendent and sentimental enough for the enthusiast or the cynic, respectively, reflecting an innate hope, a common interest in common things and common men, a time the Concord bards are ever playing while they pound away at the immensities with a Beethoven-like solemnity, and with, may we say, a vehemence and perseverance, for that part of greatness is not so difficult to emulate. Our second reading this morning is from Louisa May Alcott herself, who wrote the following poem a year after the passing of her dear friend, Henry David Thoreau. We, sighing, said, "Our Pan is dead. His pipes hang mute beside the river. Around his wistful sunbeams quiver, but music's airy voices fled. Spring mourns as for untimely frost. The bluebird chants a requiem. The willow blossom waits for him. The genius of the wood is lost. Then from the flute, untouched by hands, there came a low, harmonious breath. For such as he there is no death. His life the eternal life commands. Above man's aims his nature rose, the wisdom of a just continent, and turned to poetry life's prose. Haunting the hills, the stream, the wild, swallow and aster, lake and pine, to him grew human or divine, fit mates for this large-hearted child. Such homage nature ne'er forgets, and nearly on the coverlid, 'neath which her darling lieth hid, will write his name in violets. To him no vain regrets belong, whose soul that finer instrument gave to the world no poor lament, but wood notes ever sweet and strong. O lonely friend, he still will be, a potent presence, though unseen, steadfast, sagacious, and serene. Seek not for him, he is with thee.
I now invite you to join me in holding in our hearts the joy and sorrow of those in our community, closing your eyes and going inward if you are comfortable doing so. Some of our joys shine more brightly as others reflect our delight, and some of our burdens are made lighter as others help us carry them. I'm sorry to report that Lois Smith died Thursday after a brief struggle with cancer. And also a sadness from Dick Platt that his brother Thomas died this morning. For the joys and sorrows, both spoken and unspoken, we bear witness. We give thanks for this community of care. Let us now take a brief moment of silence. Amen. We are grateful for all the good things we have been given, especially on this Thanksgiving weekend. We appreciate the uplifting energy of community. The spirit of generosity fills us and we want to give back. There are so many things we can do together that we can't do alone. We're not going to pass around the collection plates today, but we still need your offering more than ever to support the ministries of this congregation. When you get back home, you can go to our website, usnh.org, online services, donation plate, or mail to our address, 700 Hartford Turnpike in Hampden, Connecticut, 06517. And there will be plates near the exits where you can place a contribution. Be as generous as you are able. Your contributions are gratefully received.
The next reading is from Charles Ives, and it's an essay where he opines on the literary talent of Nathaniel Hawthorne. So this is Ives on Hawthorne. The substance of Hawthorne is so dripping wet with the supernatural, the phantasmal, the mystical, so surcharged with adventures, from the deeper picturesque to the elusive fantastic, that one unconsciously finds oneself thinking of him as a poet of greater imaginative impulse than Emerson or Thoreau. He was not a greater poet, possibly, than they, but a greater artist. Any comprehensive conception of Hawthorne, either in words or music, must have for its basic theme something that has to do with the influence of sin upon the conscience, something more than the Puritan conscience, but something which is permeated by it. In this relation, he is wont to use what Hazlitt calls the moral power of imagination. Hawthorne would try to spiritualize a guilty conscience. He would sing of the relentlessness of guilt, the inheritance of guilt, the shadow of guilt, darkening innocent posterity.
Jesus, lover of my soul, let me to thy bosom fly, while the nearer waters roll, while the tempest still is nigh. Hide me, O my Savior, hide, till the storm of life is past. Safe into the haven guide, oh, receive my soul at last.
And now a passage from Nathaniel Hawthorne's short story, Feathertop, about an enchantress named Mother Rigby who summons a scarecrow to life, complete with a tobacco pipe through which he must inhale to stay alive. And then the witch beckoned to the scarecrow, throwing so much magnetic potency into her gesture that it seemed as if it must inevitably be obeyed, like the mystic call of the lodestone when it summons the iron. "Why lurkest thou in the corner, lazy one?" said she. "Step forth. Thou hast the world before thee." Upon my word, if the legend were not one which I heard on my grandmother's knee, and which had established its place among things credible before my childish judgment could analyze its credibility, I question whether I should have the face to tell it now. In obedience to Mother Rigby's word, and extending its arm as if to reach her outstretched hand, the figure made a step forward, a kind of hitch and jerk, however, rather than a step, then tottered and almost lost its balance. What could the witch expect? It was nothing, after all, but a scarecrow stuck upon two sticks. But the strong-willed old bedlam scowled and beckoned, and flung the energy of her purpose so forcibly at this poor combination of rotten wood and musty straw and ragged garments that it was compelled to show itself a man in spite of the reality of things. So it stepped into the bar of sunshine. There it stood, poor devil of a contrivance that it was, with only the thinnest vesture of human similitude about it, through which was evident the stick, rickety, incongruous, faded, tattered, good-for-nothing patchwork of its substance, ready to sink in a heap upon the floor, as conscious of its own unworthiness to be erect. Shall I confess the truth? At its present point of vivification, the scarecrow reminds me of some of the lukewarm and abortive characters composed of heterogeneous materials used for the 1,000th time and never worth using, and which romance writers, and myself no doubt among the rest, have so overpeopled the world of fiction. But the fierce old hag began to get angry and show a glimpse of her diabolic nature, like a snake's head peeping with a hiss out of her bosom, at this pusillanimous behavior of the thing which she had taken the trouble to put together. "Puff away, wretch!" cried she wrathfully. "Puff, puff, puff, thou thing of straw and emptiness, thou rag or two, thou meal bag, thou pumpkin head, thou nothing. Where shall I find a name vile enough to call thee by? Puff, I say, and suck in thy fantastic life with the smoke, else I snatch the pipe from thy mouth and hurl thee where that red coat came from." Thus threatened, the unhappy scarecrow had nothing for it but to puff away for dear life. As need was, therefore, it applied itself lustily to the pipe and sent forth such abundant volleys of tobacco smoke that the small cottage kitchen became all vaporous. Friends, as Rich extinguishes the chalice, would you please say with me the words in our order of service? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Today's benediction is from Thoreau's essay on walking. I have met with but one or two persons in the course of my life who understood the art of walking, that is, of taking walks, who had a genius, so to speak, for sauntering, which word is beautifully derived from idle people who roved about the country in the Middle Ages and asked charity under the pretense of going à la Saintière, to the Holy Land, till the children exclaimed, "There goes a Saint Terror, a saunterer, a Holy Lander." They who never go to the Holy Land in their walks, as they pretend, are indeed mere idlers and vagabonds, but they who do go there are saunterers in the good sense, such as I mean. Some, however, would derive the word from santer, without land or home, which therefore in the good sense will mean having no particular home, but equally at home everywhere. For this is the secret of successful sauntering. He who sits still in a house all the time may be the greatest vagrant of all, but the saunterer, in the good sense, is no more vagrant than the meandering river, which is all the while sedulously seeking the shortest course to the sea. But I prefer the first, which indeed is the most probable derivation, for every walk is a sort of crusade, preached by some Peter the Hermit in us to go forth and reconquer the Holy Land from the hands of the infidels. It is true, we are but faint-hearted crusaders, even the walkers nowadays, who undertake no persevering, never-ending enterprises. Our expeditions are but tours and come around again at evening to the old hearthside from which we set out. Half of the walk is but retracing our steps. We should go forth on the shortest walk, perchance, in the spirit of undying adventure, never to return, prepared to send back our embalmed hearts only as relics to our desolate kingdoms. If you are ready to leave father and mother, and brother and sister, and wife and child and friends, and never see them again, if you have paid your debts and made your will, and settled all your affairs, and are a free man, then you are ready for a walk.
Amen.